I'm Luke Storey. For the past 22 years, I've been relentlessly committed to my deepest passion, designing the ultimate lifestyle based on the most powerful principles of spirituality, health, psychology, and personal development. The Life Stylist Podcast is a show dedicated to sharing my discoveries and the experts behind them with you. Preston Smiles, here we are in Austin, Texas.
Let's go.
Yeah, so the first time we met was the other day at your house. Christmas party, kids everywhere, amazing group of people. And Allison had known you and was aware of you and turned me onto your stuff a while ago, but I didn't know that you'd moved out here.
Yeah.
And so we got the invite from Christine. Let's go to Preston's house. I was like, oh, that's the dude.
That's the dude.
Yeah.
Hurrah, hurrah,
So it's
let's go.
So it's like so many amazing folks from, both coast, New York and LA and everywhere in between have converged on this amazing city. It's such a special time right now here. And being in your home was no exception. So thank you for inviting us in and hanging out with your beautiful wife and children and like watching what the family vibe looks like in a conscious Austin community.
You mean chaos?
That
too. Organized chaos.
That too.
Yeah,
that was
man.
cool. I was watching you with your little boy. What's the oldest one? Not the twins, but the
Kingston.
third? Kingston. Yeah, I was watching you with Kingston. It was just cool. It was a cool moment just watching the family vibes.
It's the best thing ever, man.
Yeah.
I say this all the time. Like, those of us who are in the work, you go do workshops, you do this thing, you get this certification, you do this plant medicine, you do this, you do that. There is nothing more transformative than a conscious relationship. And then when you add children into that, bro, that's the greatest workshop on the planet. And I am extremely grateful that I get the opportunity to guide and also be guided by these beautiful light beings and to notice my wounded ego and the hurt little boy that shows up in these spaces and to be able to heal that in community, right? This chosen community called my wife and my children, and then also the greater community, people like yourselves that we find each other, right? To give each other the medicine that we been looking for.
I was led a couple years ago to really explore this concept of the inner child, which I had kind of discounted, I think, because it was sort of trendy in personal development circles at a time when I was in my macho phase, if I ever had one. So I was like, that's some weak ass shit. Like inner child, like grow up, man up, do this, But I was guided in a couple ceremony experiences to really go in and get to know that little boy and the different iterations of that boy. And I think the biggest takeaway was that that little boy is still present now, which is really wild to really come to a visceral understanding of that. And that there's also an adult in the room.
Yes.
Being as close as I can get to my higher self in this moment as this 50-year-old man. And I was talking to Kyle about this earlier, and a really great, and I'm not taking credit for it because it was inspiration, but a really great metaphor came in, and it was those Russian dolls.
Yes.
Right?
Every time.
So it's like, here we are, adult males in Austin, Texas, and we see the outer shell of the Russian doll. And without some deep introspection, we think that all of those other layers of the smaller and smaller and smaller Russian dolls are gone because that was the past, and we're not that person anymore. But we are, in a sense, really the wholly integrated collective of all of those dolls or all of those versions. And so I want to know what it's like to have those different size Russian dolls in your three kids reflected back to those iterations of who you were that are still within you.
Ask that one more time.
Okay, you're a grown man right now, but within you, I probably threw you off with the Russian doll shit. But within you is every version of you: teenage rebel, maybe traumatized 7-year-old, totally pure, crystalline 3-4-year-old. Like every version of you is still present in you, even though you're experiencing as the you. So what teachings are you finding at the levels your kids are presenting?
Got it.
You know what I mean? Like, where are you being taken back to your innocence or your wounds? How are your kids your teachers right now?
1,000%. One, and I'll start with my oldest son. His name is Kingston Ra. And Kingston is, he's so amazing because he's in the stage, he's about to be 3 years old, and he's in that stage where he's just testing everything. Like if I say, hey, like just short story, the other day, because I wake up really early so that my wife can sleep. And so between 4 and 5, I'm up every single day and have been for basically 3 years. And so the other day, I have one of the twins, Zahara, and we're out, and it's about 4:30, and Kingston hears us out in the living room. And so he starts screaming like, out, I want out. Right. So I go get him, and I'm changing Zahara, and I recognize that she has a blowout poop. Right. So this is the type of poop. This is not a regular poop. For those of you with kids, you know what I'm talking about. This is not a regular poop. This is the type of poop that's like on their chest. Right. So I'm changing her.
I'm ready for this, man.
It's next level.
Not the story, the experience.
Yes. It's so next level. So I'm changing her, and Kingston's there, and he's next to me, and he wants attention at that moment. And I recognize, oh, she has poop like on her stomach. And she's so happy to see me that she's like sort of gyrating, and then she grabs her own vagina, which has poop all over it at this point. So now she has poop on her hands, and I'm trying to hold her legs, wipe her. And I take the diaper and I sit it off to the side. And now I'm grabbing wipes and trying to wipe everything. Sorry about that. And I'm trying to wipe everything as fast as I possibly can. And Kingston notices this, and he decides that he wants to step on the diaper. I want to step on diaper. I said, buddy, do not do that. He looked at me. He looked at the diaper. He walked over to him and went and splattered the diaper.
Oh,
bro!
My God,
when I say I wanted to drop kick him in the face in that moment, but I could only laugh. It literally made me laugh so hard because I was like, wow, this dude is so untraumatized. He's so in his body, so pure, so connected to his own truth that he was able to, in that moment, make a decision that he was going to step on it no matter what. And I grew up afraid of my parents, specifically my mom. I love her so much, love her dearly. But my mom was raised in a spare the rod, spoil the child, right? This is a Bible verse that is used to harm children unconsciously. That happens especially in the Black community. And so my mom had this whole conversation about making sure that I did not end up like her dad and like my dad. And so she beat the aspects of the masculine that she did not like out of me by domination. And so noticing my child not have that and like, yes, the anger came up for me, but more it was the joy of knowing that I have broken the cycle, that I have, I'm raising a little boy that is making autonomous decisions without the traumatized consciousness in there, that paradigm of I'm going to be punched if I do this, right? Now, of course, he has, we discipline him and there's consequences. After I laughed, I literally folded her up really quickly and I picked him up and I said, hey, buddy, now you're in trouble. And here's why. Daddy asked you not to do it and you did it anyway. And I understand that you wanted to do that, but now I'm going to have to put you in timeout. So we're going to go over here. No timeout, no timeout. Deep breath in, breathe into the bottom of your belly, right? No timeout. Deep breath. And I showed him. I did it again. He caught it on the third one. Deep breath in. Sat him in his little bed, gave him a timeout, went and took care of Zahara. And so there's so many stories like that. But that's just one way that I get to sort of recognize when/where I was traumatized and how, and to see the healing happen through him. And for me to be able, because there's only one living generation, right? We talk millennials and baby boomers and X, Y, and Z's. It's just now, right? Just isness. And every generation is passing the baton. So my great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather passed me the baton. And same thing with great-grandmothers on both sides. And so what my job is to evolve the species, evolve the family name, to take where my mom got us, my dad got us, and take it to another level. And in these little moments like that is when I get to see that I am actually doing that.
That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. I feel like we could just keep going with more of those and make that the whole episode.
Bro.
No, it's, I think because I have not had the kid experience, and it's kind of the stage of life that I'm emerging into now, albeit a little later than some folks might, probably earlier than others. I'm always wanting to learn what I'm going through, and the audience that listens or watches this show, inadvertently is going to go along for the ride. So like 5 years ago when I started, I'd be having a conversation with a functional medicine doctor and like, so what do you think about when we see this in the labs? How do we get the lead out? And that was valid for that, important.
Yes.
Dealt with that, got the lead out, on to the next one, and then there's been all these iterations of depth, I think, which I'm willing to go and take whoever wants to listen along with. And so I'm just really finding this sweet spot with the parenting piece. And also because, and this is totally not in where I was going to go. I do have notes that are otherwise, but let's just go there. In the situation in which we find ourselves now, where we're experiencing and have agreed to such dramatic contrasts of duality, right? Between those who are free, are aware of their freedom, those who seek to be free, that are aware that on some level they're not, and those that, due to their lack of experience of love or empathy, seek to control and subjugate and exploit the rest of us that just want to do our thing, right? Speaking of the powers that be, those evil powers, right? And it seems as though right now humanity is in a prime position to bring in some souls that are ready to do big quantum leaps.
Yes.
And I'm very interested in participating in that. And so a lot of the shows I've done have been around, I did an epic show around birth trauma that was extremely controversial because it flew in the face of all conventional and Western medical wisdom in terms of the safe and healthy way to have babies and a way to give them the most autonomy in their journey here. And so I'm like pushing some pretty wild boundaries in terms of pre-parenthood, prepping to bring this vessel, or prepping your vessel to bring these spirits in. And then, now I'm kind of at, all right, so we're covering some of that. What the hell do we do when they get here?
Real talk.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
In all the stages. And I think that's what started to unfold today. And, and in so doing, it's not only about them, but about our own individual growth and healing that's present. And, in my relationship, so much of the growth now at this stage, thank you, Lord, comes from just a deeper expression of vulnerability, intimacy, and love. And there's such a healing and expansion in that versus repeating childhood trauma narratives over and over again and learning by that means of relationship. Not that one's better or the other.
Yes.
Okay. I'm totally like going off on a tangent here. We're going to get back to you, the important guest here.
No, this is how we roll.
But I'm just riffing with you. And it's kind of the nature of a lot of these Austin shows have been very much more conversational than they have like, okay, Preston, where were you born? What's your mission? Like, we'll get there.
Yeah.
But as a parent, I'm in awe at what you're experiencing and learning, especially being in the field with you and your family, as I said. So I think these conversations are super, super important right now for conscious parents. So I'm going to zip that up and ask you a legitimate question that's answerable. And that is, where do you learn how to parent? How did you know not to shame, poop stomp in that moment, even though you felt a bit of that well up? What gave you the insight to give him a firm timeout, even though you were kind of laughing at it, not just you guys just rolling the poop and laugh together? Like, where are you getting the intuition to make what you believe to be in that moment a decision for the highest good?
Yes. So you hit the nail on the head when you said intuition, because that's essentially what it is. In the Western world, we have been sold an idea about what right and wrong is across the board. And right, in my opinion, is the most dangerous drug on the planet. Right? Wanting to be right, thinking one is right, is one of the things, in my opinion, that has destroyed families and destroyed countries. It literally is just not great, in my opinion. It's not effective. So I enter conversations, period, from maybe, we'll see. And we'll see and maybe and let's find out is how I'm learning to parent. Because oftentimes, right? So this pure being comes into the world, and then life happens, and we cannot block our children, nor ourselves, nor our friends, nor our family from the lessons they came here to experience. Right? That's the conundrum. That's the cosmic joke, is you want to save everybody from the lessons, and yet you can't. And yet I can't. We have become these control freaks that are trying to figure out ways to be perfect, right? And my whole world is high intention, low attachment, progress over perfection. I'm going to find out. And I'm aware that some of the trauma that I experienced as a child is still a part of the dance that I do in this skin suit called Preston, right? We'd be fooling ourselves to think that, I've healed that. Maybe, or maybe it's dormant until you have a 7-year-old who is autistic. And your wife thinks that it should be this, and you think it should be that. Or maybe until X, Y, and Z. Like this idea that we have figured it out and we can go take a hit of something and then, now I'm enlightened. Yes, and that's the game I play. Let's find out. So I'm aware that some of the biggest traumas that I've experienced in my life have made me pull over here. And so the game is not balance, because I don't believe in balance. And that's a whole nother, we can debate about that. I think that the planet obviously balances itself. But when we're talking about householder, regular people, balance is a covert, secret word for how do I control, right? So I'm not seeking balance. I'm seeking weaponry. I'm seeking to be a weapon for God's love. And that means that I can choose at any point what's needed and necessary for that specific thing, knowing that it's not right. It's just what I can pull from in the tapestry of this beautiful thing that I've chosen called Preston in this skin suit. I don't know if that makes sense.
Makes perfect sense. Apart from you being intuitively guided in any given moment at what the optimal decision and outcome might be when you're interacting with these little beings that are coming in to remember who they are, is there also like listening to podcasts on conscious parenting, reading books about how to do the birth this way, and is there that like
my wife
for the
does
3D
that.
stuff too?
My wife does that. We have spent many years in the bush in Tanzania and a little bit in Uganda, and I have traveled to India and been there for a month by myself, and been to places where they are a little more connected to how we used to raise children. And so seeing how they parent, and then also noticing how I was parented, noticing how I grew up in this sort of Dennis the Menace neighborhood that we turned into a war zone. And right now, one of my friends is in jail, probably for the next 20 years. These are people who grew up right around the corner from me. His dad was a doctor, right? My other friend lives on the streets. His name is Elliot. Beautiful human. He's been shot. He's been stabbed. He's been to jail multiple times. He has like 6 kids. We all grew up in the same neighborhood. But the difference between me and them was I had a present dad and they didn't. That's the only thing I can find. And I had discipline, some of it unhealthy, depending on who's looking at it, and a lot of it really healthy and beautiful, with consequences and things of that nature. And so when I look at there's 8 of us who were about the same age, all grew up in the same neighborhood, houses from each other. And why am I in the position that I'm in? Why am I a, entrepreneur who can live all over the world in X, Y, and Z? And the only thing I can sort of trace it back to is that. I mentioned this a little earlier, and I want to touch on it some more. The feminine, and when I say feminine, I mean like actual women, have been, in general, deeply harmed by men. And I don't have an answer to this, but I do. There's something I've noticed, right? Because I also do men's work. I have this group called Man Cave. And so I've been spending years and years and years with men and also women, and I work with both. And then I notice what happens in me. And I mentioned this earlier. A lot of moms unconsciously try to beat out the parts of the masculine that hurt them. And
oh man, that's deep, dude. That's good.
That ends up producing this nice guy, fucking neutered,
the spineless beta
weakling. Yes. And then that beautiful human who was raised by this mom who every time his wild man showed up, she said, no, that's wrong, that's bad. And she tried to get rid of it because she was cheated on, she was raped, she was harmed by the masculine. That thing, to me, is where the biggest work is for us, because we spend, and of course this is changing, right? Because dads used to go off and be gone for hours and hours and hours, and moms used to stay at home. And now that the pendulum's swinging and it's changing, but that is something I think that we all get to collectively look at and ask ourselves, how was I affected by that?
Us men, you mean?
Us men,
yeah, and
just women as well.
Right. There's a book I read years ago called The War Against Boys, if you've heard of it. And it's about more about not so much the individual family, but the collective as a society, and especially the education system.
Yes.
How healthy masculinity is being bred out of males through, you can't compete in sports, don't play with toy guns, all this like political correctness kind of infiltrating into that. And, it's all wormhole we could go down. But it's interesting in my life because I had very polarized parental experiences. I had a dad who was super rugged guy from Colorado, hunting, fishing, man's man, rodeo star, stock car racer, Marlboro man, just tough as nails, and a little too tough a lot of the time for my taste.
Yes.
We're cool now. We're going to Joe Dispenza in a few days together. Like epic. All has been, all is well, and it's all served its purpose. But that was the model that I was given for like manhood, a bit out of balance, speaking of balance. And then mom, really instilled in me beautiful values of love and compassion and tolerance. And, she was raised in the 60s in Berkeley. And like when I was a kid, for example, just to give you an idea of my mom, I could drop F-bombs all day long. I lived oftentimes in areas with a lot of Latinos. And, in school, you pick up words, right? As a kid, you don't really know what they mean. It's just kind of, you're burning someone, you're like cutting someone down. I remember I would impress my friends when they came over because I could be like, what the fuck, mom? Where's the sandwiches? And my friends would be waiting for me to get smacked.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, we're cool. But if I was like, yeah, and this beaner at school today did this and that, like done, cancel. Oh, you're done. You're like full grounding, full end of story. All friends go home.
Yes.
Not allowed, So beautiful things in terms of progressivism and just inclusivity and just high level compassionate intelligence. And at the same time, I was allowed to go kind of play and be wild. But if I came home with the big ass buck knife that my dad gave me, or a BB gun, or, bring snakes that I caught into the house, there was a stop on some of those things, you know? So I wouldn't say that my masculinity was stifled, but it was not allowed to be in its full expression. And my model for that was a little bit extreme.
Yes.
And I think because of, I always want to respect people's anonymity, but I can intuit some of my mom's experiences with males and with the masculine might not have been preferable to her. And so I'm sure that I was one of those kids that experienced some of that. And it was really painful to come into adolescence, early adulthood, being extremely feminine in energy and very creative. And that's such a beautiful energy to have now. And I really embrace that part of myself. But man, it was a long, hard road to learn how to cultivate healthy masculine energy. So I commend you as a father and as someone working with men, because just putting men out of the conversation because men are bad, that ain't the answer.
Correct.
That's not the way home. The way home is in us learning about the subtle energies within us and learning how to play with them. And now I don't want to say the word balance because you're like, balance sucks, but I can't think of a better way, right? To find congruence perhaps within that dance. And in my life, it's really fun to observe how I can be in my feminine, like right now, and I'm just being all fluid and I'm tapping into the ethers and really in that space. And it's such a sweet space, but I can't stay there all the time or I fall off, then like I'm kind of grossing out Allison. She's like, what? Who? Like she needs me to hold space in a specific way at times.
Yes.
And I need to be able to identify when that is, what that feels like, what that looks like, and how to do so in a way that still maintains that heart and compassion that hasn't lost the love.
Yes.
So thank you for that. Thank you for that. I haven't had someone articulate, the journey of a boy in that way. So with your little boy, for example, what do you encourage within him that could be deemed, for lack of a better term, healthy masculinity or a full expression of his boyness without holding that back?
Yeah, man. Kind of everything, right? Like he found his dick really early and he would go to work on that thing. And I remember, being shamed for that. And having a secret code word or your boo-boo or your, and it's like, no, that's your dick. And yes, when you do that, it gets hard. And like, yeah, that can feel good, buddy. Go for it. Right? Just let's not necessarily do it while we're, standing in line at the grocery store, but like,
right.
It's your dick. Go for it.
Your kid's going to listen to this at a 16-year-old and be like, oh my God, I'm mortified.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah. No, I let that go. First of all, my son's very particular. I have two of them. So we have 10-month-old twins, and then we have a almost 3-year-old. And he's, not that I believe too much in this stuff, but he's an Aquarius. I'm a Leo. These are polar opposites on the chart or whatever, but similar energies, and they're big and they're strong. And you grew up, sensitive and creative. And I was like the opposite. I was just a destroyer, just like bikes and rocks and spray painting and like, rah, just like my whole childhood was that. And I knew it wasn't safe at home. So at home, I was an angel, sweetheart, aware, conscious, two powerful women who would dominate me. So I was an out of the way kid, right? Because we adapt. If your parents are super stressed out, you become an out of the way kid. If your parents, are checked out, you become a clown. Oh, let me get more attention. No, I'll do this.
This is good.
Right?
Yeah.
So depending on what your caregiver is, the child adapts to reach towards the sun, aka the love that they can never get enough of. And so I recognize that my son is a very particular type of kid. He's risk averse. Most kids at 2 years old are jumping off of curbs and doing crazy stuff. He looks at that curb and he's like, I could get hurt. I'm going to go slow. And he's super artistic and he's, so I just encourage whatever his thing is. There is a movement called unschooling where that's what they do. It's like whatever your kid's thing is, roll with that and teach from that canvas. And so I don't try to make him into what I want him to be. I do notice that there's somebody asked the other day, they were like, what if he's into ballet? And they'd be like, well, that wouldn't be awesome for me. However, if he was into ballet,
right,
we would roll with it, right? But do I personally want my son to be into ballet? No, I don't.
Yeah, because you kind of have to a degree as a parent, or you can elect to adopt the passion that they inherently gravitate toward. I think that's an interesting thing about kids, perhaps karmically or something. When I was a kid, I was drawn toward catching snakes and lizards and turtles. I was obsessed most of my childhood. That's all I really cared about. All I wanted to do. Why that? Like what instilled that in me? It's always a mystery to me versus the other kid who just nerds out and reads books all day and just won't go outside or something. You know what I mean?
Bro, it's so trippy, man.
Yeah.
It's so trippy.
Where do I want to go with this? What's your definition of freedom as a value?
Presence. I was coaching a group earlier today, maybe 2-3 hours ago, and we were speaking about this particular thing. And I was sharing that what imprisons us also points to our freedom. So the very thing that we are most afraid of, or that we've made up stories about, or that we find ourselves immersed in, is the thing that points to the freedom. And so for me, I've lived my life searching those things out. Okay? What does my ego not want to look at? Just a short story. 2014, I was making $32,000 a year. I had just met Alexi, my now wife, and I was crystal clear. This is my wife. I was living in my mom's downstairs extra room. And
where was this?
Harbor City, California.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Just outside of LA. And
is that down by Long Beach?
Yes, exactly.
Oh, okay.
I grew up in the South Bay. So
okay.
Carson, San Pedro, Harbor City, Torrance, all those things. So I'm living in my mom's extra room. I'm not making much money, but I have something that's handwritten on my soul. Like I know I'm here to do something to support humanity and raising their vibration and finding personal freedom. Because I call myself a personal freedom coach, personal freedom and embodiment coach or facilitator. True freedom is outside of circumstances, right? So a lot of people say, I want to be financially free. That's an oxymoron. You cannot be financially free. You can have financial independence, but freedom is an inside job. We all know people who've had millions and millions and millions of dollars who kill themselves or commit slow suicides because they were never actually free. External circumstances, I say this all the time in my workshops. I won, and I'm winning when I wake up. And when I say right hand move, right hand moves. I won and I am winning when I can look over to another being and say, that person loves me and I love that person. I won and am winning when I can walk to a refrigerator, put on a jacket, and know that all my basic needs are met. Everything else is a cherry on top. Now, 2014, $32,000. That year I made a decision. My ego, up until that point, I was a coach, facilitator, all the things, broke, right? And broke financially. I had $1 million consciousness, but I wasn't willing to look at certain things. So I said, okay, this is the thing. You never want to look at the numbers. You don't want to look at the business. You don't want to look at the gift of making your services a vehicle for somebody else's breakthrough, right? So
do you think there's a interjection here real quick? Do you think that that's part of the spiritual teacher, personal development stigma where like, if you're in it for the money, you're not authentic?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
So what I had to come to recognize is that God has never separated itself. So it's not, it doesn't stop at a border or it doesn't stop at money. Money's listening. God is a yes. It's always a yes. There's only one power. How we use the power. Gandhi used the power. Hitler used the power. One power, not two. One God, not two. That's it. So the isness, I can make a choice about how I'm going to use this isness, how I'm going to use this energy. And I made a decision about it that was so crystal clear about this woman being my wife and about what we were here to build together. And that year, I made $150,000, the most anybody in my family had ever made, right? That seems like chump change to some of you guys, but for me, it was ginormous. The next year, I made 3. The next year, I made 6. The next year, I made $1 million, and I haven't stopped, bro. And I'm saying that's just one aspect. It's one thing. I've decided that I was going to play with the things of life, right? All of this will be trash, or somebody else will own it one day. And so while I'm here, since everything is a cherry on top, I've already won. right? Knowing that spirit can only do for me what it can do through me. I'm going to choose freedom now and watch as the universe matches that. Does it mean I don't work? Of course not. I work my ass off. But I create my own weather. A lot of people want the work to give them the inspiration, and I bring the inspiration to my work. And to me, long story short, that all of that encompasses what freedom means to me.
Oh man, took every ounce of discipline to not interject a question within that answer. There's so much stuff there. So beautiful. The making a decision.
Mm-hmm.
That's the one.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's dreams of, I'm going to manifest this, I'm going to manifest that, right? I'm going to go here, I'm going to go there. I'm going to change this about my life, about myself. I mean, I'm thinking back of all the myriad of those opportunities that I've had and the times when a quantum shift, a tectonic shift has taken place, are the times in which a firm decision was made. Like, nope, I'm done. This is changing. But at the core. And what's funny about that is when those changes have ensued, there was no conscious knowledge of how that change was to transpire when the decision was made. It's as if the decision created the know-how and the map, the directions, the GPS of like, right turn, left turn, boom, boom, talk to them. Then an expanse of time elapses and you're like, I used to be there and now I'm here. How the fuck did that happen?
Real talk.
How it happened was a decision. I love that you bring that into your teaching.
Yes.
The next thing is, I've heard you talk about this and I was like, dude gets it. And this is the principle of neutrality.
Mm-hmm.
Can you unpack that? Because I think of the work of someone like Byron Katie, right? Where you're always questioning your own narrative.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's that instantaneous observer of one's opinions, preferences, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's a lot of freedom in that. I think this is
time.
like, that's the gate. That's one of the main gateways into interpersonal freedom.
Bro.
So unpack your piece on neutrality.
Okay. So 8 years ago, I was studying to be a practitioner. And then I was going to go on to be a reverend under Michael Beckwith and that whole crew. And we were reading The Science of Mind by Ernest Holmes. And there was a line in this book, and I don't know if you ever had this experience where you just read one line and it just like rocks you to your core. Ernest Holmes said to get your questions answered and your answers questioned. And just
that's good.
It hit me so deep because most of humanity types into Google, why am I so fat? Why am I so ugly? Why is the world so terrible? Why are we controlled? And Google has to answer. God has to answer. It will give you what you ask for. But that's where most people stop. They do not question the answer, right? And so I began to question everything that wasn't of course for me and make a new decision about who I was going to present as. If I believe that God is infinite, there's no place where it stops. Omnipresent, omnipotent, omniscient. And I am an expression of it. And it always says yes. Only one answer from God. If I believe that, then now I can be the Picasso of my life. I can make decisions. Now, I'm going to break this down. There's 4 aspects of what it means to be human. We are biological beings. We are linguistic beings, which means we build worlds with our language, which is why we say, speak what you seek until you see what you said. We are social and historical beings, which means we were born into beliefs and interpretations. We were born into beliefs and interpretations. So I had to look at and ask myself, what beliefs and interpretations that I have been born into that no longer are effective, not right, not wrong, but no longer are effective for what I am calling in, right? Because the universe only says yes. God only says yes. So I can choose how I'm going to experience. All roads lead to the same place. Now, here, with body, without body. here, now. Without body, timeline hopping. With body, Preston, black guy, X, Y, and Z, right? Still, yes. So for me, I am constantly looking, and the fourth, for those of you saying, what's the fourth? We are quantum beings. So biological beings, linguistic beings, social and historical beings, and quantum beings. I'm playing with all four and asking myself, what's true for me now? What's the highest choice I can make in this now moment, knowing that I cannot ever be off purpose. To me, that's one of the biggest misconceptions that people operate from on our planet, that we have one purpose. That's true and not true. Our one purpose is to reflect and reveal the cosmos in the way that only we can. Everything else is the journey. We have one purpose, yes, and many missions. And those missions change on a need-to-know basis, like you were talking about.
That's cool, yeah.
So I don't know if I answered your question, bro, but that needed to come through.
In many, many ways you did.
What's your truth about that?
I go back to a book that was extremely meaningful for many, many years of my life. It's a big blue book. It's called Alcoholics Anonymous. Doesn't have a cover. You take the cover off, it's very anonymous. It's just a blue book. But that book is so packed with truth. And when I heard your teaching on neutrality, of not having a fixed position or opinion on where you find your current reality, in that book, it talks about how God had done something for us as problem drinkers that we couldn't do for ourselves. And in my case, said a prayer, poof, problem gone. I mean, there was a lot more that went into it, but that's the crux of it. And then the book goes on to say that because we had this surrender experience, we were placed in a position of neutrality. We no longer had to fight the drink. Now, if you take the context of the teachings of that book and the 12 steps and just remove the word alcohol, it applies to anything with which we struggle or become attached or addicted to, right? So in that surrender, I'm placed in a position of neutrality where I'm given the opportunity to not color or judge any particular point of experience that I'm walking through. In Shakespeare's terminology, this would be there is no such thing as good or bad, only thinking makes it so.
Yes.
So it's in the science of mind, the Beckwith stuff, like all that Emmett Fox. It's like in that lane, there was a period there of that, those teachings in the 20s, 30s, into the 40s, Napoleon Hill, like the early kind of Christian scientists that would merge into the personal development space in a way, just to give historical relevance. But I think the takeaway in all of that is that our reality is what we decide it to be. And that from any vantage point along a linear time-space journey, anything that happens, car got impounded, divorce happened, loved one died, got cancer, we've all had our things, right? Yes. Where you're like, this is the worst thing to happen to anyone ever. How could God forsaken me? Those moments, literally in every moment, what's happening to us is based on where it fits on our scale, right? And so my question in that is, how does one live in a position of non-judgment and neutrality and expansive open-mindedness where all possibilities are considered, yet at the same time have discernment, right? So there's judgment and discernment. How do we stay in a position of neutrality and surrender and not just lay on our back while a truck rolls over us?
Yes.
I guess it's like I'm looking for that surrendered action.
Here it goes. Threefold beings: body, mind, soul. We are at our most powerful when all three are aligned. I'm sure in your lifetime, and I can speak for myself, you've had that moment where your body was like, yes, we are going to have sex with that woman right there. And then your mind said, nah, bro, probably shouldn't do that.
I'm familiar.
Yes, exactly. And your soul was like, I'll love you no matter what, or whatever the case may be. Yeah. For me, I tune in. Like, so what's happening here, right? Because there's three centers of intelligence: head, heart, gut, right? Oftentimes people try to logically figure things out. And the heart emits a frequency as well, and the gut wisdom, right? There's so much there. And so I just allow myself to tune in and ask, what is my body? What is my heart? What is my soul? What is it trying to lead me towards? Knowing that, and that's the caveat for me, knowing that I cannot fail, right? Entering any conversation from I cannot fail makes me deeply powerful. It literally takes away the what's the word? It's not that it takes away the fear, right? Because I'm still in this skin suit, right? I chose to be human on this planet at this time in human history. And I choose to stay alive in this skin suit for as long as I humanly can, because I enjoy parenting my children, and I'm looking forward to being like deep friends with them later on in life. Right? I have a desire. And so there is fear that enters the space. However, and I tell my clients this all the time, if you took it all away, right? Took it all away, I'd cry for a few days, maybe a few weeks. And then one day, I'd get back up. That's it. And I'd do it all over again. So the idea that it needs to be millions, I am at some point going to write a book called 300,000aire, because this idea that you need to be a millionaire in order to be worthy or whatever the case may be is absolute bullcrap. Because you know and I know that there's people who make millions, but they don't keep much. And there's people who make 600,000 and they keep 400,000. They make more than the person who made 2 million and only kept 200,000, right? So which is it? And this is not about those numbers, but for me, I tune in and I do my best to allow the body, mind, and the soul to be having the same conversation. If they are not having the conversation together, then I do what they teach in the Vedas, which is to sit in it until it's charming. Sit in it until you know. Be still and know that I am God. Go within or you go without. I sit, I pause, I allow, right? I think we become this sort of fast-paced thing that happens on our planet, and it's not needed, right? One of the best things anybody could do is just pause and listen. What's here? And do I choose what's here? Do I still choose it? Because it's here, which means I chose it at some level, right? The resistance of what's here shouldn't be. Everybody's fucked when they play that game. What's here should not be. I'm now saying, hey God, hey isness, hey universe, hey Jesus, hey Buddha, hey Allah, you messed up. You messed up because what's here shouldn't be.
So good. So timely considering the conversation we had before we recorded. And I'm sure by the time this episode comes out, I might have, told this story, or we might be past this part in the story. But obviously we're out here in Austin looking for a home. We dig it, dig you, all the people, we're in, done. Mm-hmm. Mission like critical, let's make this happen or allow this to happen. And we're looking for houses. Bad time to look for houses. I mean, again, there's a judgment, bad. Possibly not the optimal time to look for houses. Mm-hmm. There's not a lot of inventory, relatively speaking, to when there would be at other times in the year, yes, et cetera. So we're kind of like, and we want to make this move. And we have a timeline that we have in mind, loan-wise, all the 3D shit. And then we find this house and we're like, we think it's a go. Like it's the most go out of any of the 4 that we've looked at or something, because we haven't been able to look at many due to the reasons just described. And we're feeling into it. And then I get an email right before we recorded from my the owner of the house I leased back in LA, and she gives me 30 days notice. She's like, "Yeah, we have to. Sorry, we're giving you 30 days. We have to move into the house you're living in to remodel their big house or whatever,
Of course.
And I'm just like, I looked at Allison. I'm just like, this is so perfect. Mm-hmm. It's so perfect. So that is because I have built a little bit of that neutrality of one thing happens. An email says XYZ. One reality is, how could they do this to me? What a bitch. God hates me. We're so fucked now. Now we got to hurry. What are we going to, the money, the moving truck, like what, we're going to Joe Dispenza, then we go to Queeksmala. This is the worst thing that ever happened, right? That judgment of saying bad, event bad, mark that red, And getting a little bit better at the sweet spot of like, oh, this is interesting. It's just interesting.
Yes.
Okay. It's just interesting. And then, the other trap is like, this is good. This is the best thing happened. Let's move. Let's do this. It's like, no, I'm not going to make a decision based on what the intellect thinks in its limited perspective of what something is classified as and what the chain of events or decision is going to be around that, the finality of that judgment, right? So in that dance of interesting, there's infinite potentiality. Because now, from one linear perspective, we're under pressure. But are we really? Because there's a million ways that can unfold. Put your shit in storage, don't move. Move it out here, put it in storage. Rent a place, buy a place, don't buy a place. It's like we're actually not locked into anything if one can surrender one's attachment to their opinion on it.
Real talk.
Right? It's not, that's
power.
Talk about freedom. Like, whoa, now we're really kind of dancing with reality here. We're Cirque du Soleil, like flipping around, swinging around, making some more graceful moves rather than that clumsy, fear-based, forcing, controlling thing that I'm pretty damn good at this point. So yeah. And then anyway, what I was getting to was then we're like, Preston, check out the listing. What do you think? And you tapped into the place you just described. I can only assume body, mind, spirit. You're like, dope house, do this.
Yes. It was instant.
And that was so good for us because we're still in the, well, what if, thing.
Bro.
Yeah.
That house is epic.
Yeah. So
and if it's yours, awesome. If
and
it's not.
And wouldn't it be funny if by the time this comes out, I'm like recording the intro for this going, yeah, you guys, you're going to hear about an hour in, we talk about this house. We live here now, which is very possible. And if we don't, we're going to live somewhere else. And I'm going to go, thank God I didn't say no to God.
Yes.
Thank God I said, maybe, let's see.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Beautiful teachings.
Huge.
So a lot of your work is about the celebration and expression of love, embracing love, okay? And in my current worldview, when we look at the things in the world that we might want to change, take social issues or racism, financial issues, societal education system, medical system, political system, all the systems, all the isness of the human experience, many people with their hearts in the right place, from my perspective, come at those systems they wish to change by fighting against them. My perspective on all of these things is if there's a problem somewhere, it's that there is a lack of love there. Okay. And this is like when all of this racial stuff kind of exploded, it took me a minute to really like, whoa, this is very delicate. This is delicate. I ain't touching this shit for a minute, honestly. Like I'm not popping off just because like I'm supposed to say something. That's just the thing that comes to mind right now. So I had to feel into it. I'm like, no matter what way I feel into any of these problems, the COVID thing, which I just completely think is a complete scam in just about every way. And we don't have time to get into that. I've done a lot of shows on it. And God bless anyone whose family is sick of anything, flu, call it whatever you want. I really earnestly believe that. Mean that. But I look at any problem like that. I'm like, okay, so you have evil people over here doing bad shit. What's the problem? Lack of love. You have police doing this thing. What's the problem? Lack of love. So the obvious and really elementary solution to a problem based in lack of love is more love, unconditional love. And at the same time, that runs the risk of spiritual bypass.
Yes.
And not asking hard questions, having difficult conversations around, okay, love might be the answer. Let's agree on that. But we also have to acknowledge the elephant in the room, that there's a serious problem here. And I don't know that I've ever been able to reconcile what that is because I'm just brought back to, okay, yeah, there's a problem. I admit it. What's the solution? I'm just like so solution oriented.
Yes.
So in your work and from your perspective, how can we acknowledge a problem?
I got it, bro.
Okay, you know where I'm going with this?
I got it.
I don't know if I'm able to articulate it, but it's one that fascinates me. And I think I'm finding my way through it.
Yep. I'm going to say something.
But I want to open this up as a real honest dialogue.
This is what I'm going to say is probably going to be very controversial for a lot of people. So I'm just caveating that now. So I want to start by a broad stroke of what I believe love is.
Oh, this is going to be good.
Mm-hmm. So, and maybe not. Love is what we're breathing right now. Love is we can't be separate from it. Love and God, for me, are the same things. I've had the good fortune of watching people die bloody deaths, brains on ground, holding human, dying, and recognizing that this was a person inside of this thing 4 minutes ago. Now, 5 minutes, no person in there. So, was that, speaking to Amelia Sturrental, Amelia, if you're here, thank you for the opportunity of holding you and being with you as you died, as you, I won't even say died, as you transitioned. Amelia, this is the last time it happened, New York City. She gets hit by a cab, flies in the air, lands on her brain, and she struggles and fights for her life. As she dies, while I'm holding her feet, praying over her, and a nurse and a doctor are there, and everybody else doesn't want to look because her brains are splattered on the ground. Amelia was not in there anymore. And I'm sure that if she could write the script on how she passed away, it wouldn't be on Mother's Day in New York on some grimy ass street outside of Saks Fifth Ave. Sure of it. However, that's what happened. And that was still love and still God. So when I say love is all there is, was and ever will be, that encompasses the ants murdering each other, the horses kicking each other in the face, the gorillas ripping their fucking like babies apart. It encompasses everything. So when we say, or when you said more love, my rebuttal to that is the protests were love. The people who made it chose to be violent against the violence, that was love too. Everybody does everything from their version of love. The people who hung my ancestors from trees believed that they were loving America. They were loving their family by destroying these heathens who are not fully men. When they drug Emmett Till on the back of a truck and cut off his dick and burned him, they believed that they were doing it for their country. They weren't wrong. They weren't right either. Because God doesn't separate itself. It just says yes. So my view is that all of nature, the trees outside of this window, are fighting for the sunlight. All of nature is violent and all of that still produces transmutation. So when there is a global or local issue that gets faced, right? Because a lot of people came to me during that time and said, we just need to change the X, Y, and Z. Yes. And how we get there is this route, this route, this route, this route, this route, and that one. And just because you see 2,000 people peacefully protesting, but the media shows you the 14 people who are doing the opposite, or the fake rioters who were actually police officers inciting the thing, whatever that is, the bricks that are dropped off in every neighborhood, right? Like all of that,
Yeah.
right? It doesn't mean that that's not a part of the solution. Does that make sense? It's all a part of the solution. Going back to all roads lead to the same place. Rome wasn't built in a day, and neither will this utopia that we believe we're building. Even when we get there, there will be violence. Even when we get there, people will still be hit by cars. Even when we get there, little kids will have diseases and die early. I sat in an ayahuasca ceremony 6-7 years ago. It was the last one I did. And I set the intention to know myself as God. Whew, what an intention. That's the last time I'll set that intention.
Yeah, careful with that one.
Bro, it was beautiful. And then at one point, it just turned. It just turned. And it was literally the most excruciating thing I have ever experienced. Just pure mayhem. And towards the end, it started to take my breath away. And I could feel like, oh, you're about to not breathe anymore. And it said, if you want out, tap out now. And I went, boom, boom. And I tapped out. And I was back, fully back. And I say that to say, there's no way to not be operating from love. And I know that may be deeply controversial for a lot of people. I have this sneaking suspicion that when we find our way on the other side of these skin suits and we recognize that we are pure beingness, able to shoot anywhere we want to, we'll go, that was just one piece, because life has no opposite. Life can only be lifing. And whether we see it or we don't, it's still lifing. I'll leave that there for now.
That's great. I love that. I guess that's kind of, it's really kind of a non-dualistic viewpoint on the duality that we're in. It's like keeping that same perspective, and it kind of ties into that neutrality too. I think the difficulty for some is that, I don't know how to say this in a way that's delicate and that also makes sense. I think when people experience what they perceive to be wrongdoing or injustice, they have a God-given desire to make it right and fix it.
Yes.
But at the same time, our reality in our world is really only what we project it to be. So one might have a sincere desire to change the world. The world shouldn't be this way. We shouldn't have, the evil that you described and all these things. So I'm going to set out and I'm going to change the world.
Yes.
But without the knowledge that the world you see is only a projection of your perception of it, isn't that attempt at change futile? So how can one then affect positive change out there in the world when it seems to me that really the only way to affect the positive change you want to see in the world is to really go deeply within and really start to examine oneself and to cultivate the revelation of the God within you, to cultivate the revelation of the love that is already there, that is all that's there. So when I said, erroneously, we just need to infuse more love. The problem is not that there's no love, that we can take it from here and put it there. It's that we need to, within ourselves, remove the blocks from that experience of love.
Real talk. And the vehicle, the vehicle, going back to I'm going to change the world.
Yeah.
Your complaint is your mission. What you complain about is your mission. So that mission gets the person going so that they can walk themselves back home. And we're always coming back home to the self. I completely agree with you. I don't know if most people understand that. This is just like, I'm headed back home, back to the heart. Because ultimately, for me, life is meaningless. It's just whatever I say it is. Whatever fight I have, whatever thing I'm going after, that's just to get me going. It's to get me in this process so it's not boring. And yes, does it matter? Yes. Will it transmute and change and shift the landscape of our planet? Yes. And when it's all said and done, there's only God, and it can't separate itself. So when I'm fully trusting in that, magic. When I'm not, and trust me, there's many times where I'm not, I fall into the angst. Am I clear that being a Afro-amazing man comes with a whole set of things, including people crossing streets and clenching their purses and talking shit and mob mentality? I've had all of it happen. I've been kicked and spit on and called a nigger and a monkey multiple times.
Wow.
I've been humiliated by mobs of weak ass white men, for sure. And I know that they had to be hurting to do that. I knew it. So what do I do with that? Do I point it back? I need to hurt all the white men who hurt me. They were already hurting. I chose this skin suit. I chose this so that I could experience the highest heights of joy. Right? Because somebody do it for me. Explain left without giving me an understanding of what right is. Explain hot without letting me know what cold is. Explain, let's call it joy, without me giving me an experience of something opposite to that. Seemingly opposite to that. Called it in. So I ride the wave. I ride the wave like everybody else rides the wave. I chose this one, this time, like this. And it's awesome.
Do you get the sense that in addition to choosing, the circumstance in which we arrive in terms of who our parents are, lineage, ancestry, all of that carried down trauma, and whatever gender, level of pigment that we choose, because we know that's gonna indicate a certain, to a degree, we kind of know the path there. You know what I mean? Like you're born in the middle of the tundra somewhere in Alaska, your life experience as an Eskimo is going to be different than, you're a kid born in Japan in the 40s, yes. All that, right? But I've had to really, I don't know if grapple is the right word, but let's say courageously explore some of the experiences in my life in which I was victimized. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's no other way to say it, really, even though I don't feel like a victim now in hindsight and having done such exploration. But there were definitely experiences that have been traumatic and painful in which I was harmed, and I had really no conscious part in playing that out. So there's other situations where I was being a selfish dick and I wanted something. I got in the cookie jar and I got my ass beat, by whatever experience. That's one thing. But I'm talking about you're a little kid. Yeah. You're chilling and someone fucks with you deeply, right? As an adult, I've been able to contextualize that as, ooh, it's all part of this journey and this dance. But I've never been able to get to the point where I felt like I called that in any way. Mm-hmm. What's your perspective on that? Of, I guess it's a karmic question. Like we're choosing to come in a certain way at a certain time, but then isn't it a little bit of a gamble is exactly how that's going to play out?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So you could have been born a black kid wherever you're born and had a completely different experience. Maybe you live somewhere where people are totally accepting of you and you never had to experience that. Did you choose all of it? Did I choose all of it? The good, the bad, and the ugly? Or did I just choose the starting point?
For me, it's more empowering because I've also had a similar experience as a child with a family friend locking the door and turning the lights out. And I don't remember all of it, but I know that that's affected my intimacy with other men and allowing men to be my friend. Right? So this is a thing that I've been working on for years because of what happened when I was like 10. Right? And many other experiences too. Like I almost died at 25 because I gave myself a heart condition because I was so stressed out from the life that I had been living. But just to answer your question, it's deeply empowering for me to believe that I chose it all. Because then no one else has my power. I chose it all. And within, let's just call it my hand, right? Within my hand is a million paths. And I keep saying this, all roads lead to the same place. And every time I get to a fork in the road, no matter which way I go, this way or that way, I'm still going to end up right there, which is here and now.
Right.
So, okay.
That's good.
Does the 5-year-old ask consciously, I would like to be molested by my uncle? No. However, when that 5-year-old is standing on the stage and it's now 35 and helping millions of people who've been molested by their uncle break through, does that same person say, wow, I get it. I get what God was doing. I get what the universe was doing. I get what my higher self was doing when it chose this particular path. Because look what I get to do and be with other humans. Look what depths and compassion and empathy I get to extract and pull from because I've had that experience. Bro, I've always been intense, but because I've had some of the experiences we're talking about, my coaching, I'm a monster in facilitation and in coaching. Because I've been down some roads.
Yeah.
Would I like to take those roads away and just be, this pure crystalline being who never had anything happen? I don't know if I would trade it. Those things sucked. And I don't think I would trade it. I chose my dad. And my dad chose his choices. And those things fucked me up. But who's the me that it fucked up? That's the question I get to sit in. Did it really? Or did it give me direction? Did the dude love me? Yes. Was he doing the best that he could with the tools and consciousness he had available? Yes. Am I doing the best that I can? Can I stop myself? Can I not fuck my kids up? No, I'm going to fuck my kids up. Okay. Well, is that potentially true for everybody who's ever raised a kid? Yeah. Everybody's going to fuck the kids up. So, yeah, just roll with it.
I think there's a lot of power in taking responsibility. I think that's that dividing line right between seeing yourself as a victim of circumstance and if not taking responsibility for the nuances of the journey in each of those points in which one might have been perceived to be victimized, but in that you agreed to the big mission and however that might play out. That makes a lot of sense to me. Like I can get behind that. In other words, at some point there was a soul contract saying, I don't care how we get over there, I'm going over there. If we have to go through some shit, cool. And that shit might be being molested. And I'm not encouraging that as a path, but for me, it's funny you mentioned that particular age and event. That really was like the ultimate tweak turning point where shit just went way off the rails and, is probably still off the rails at 50 years old in some ways as a result of that. But same here. I mean, I think if you went back in that moment, like, Luke, you cannot walk in that room right now. As weird as it sounds, as much as I don't want to believe it, I would probably have the same experience because I like who I am right now. And there's no telling who I might have ended up being had I not walked through all those fires and stomped on all those hot coals and just kept the grind going, good, bad, or indifferent.
Bro, my father, beautiful man. My whole life, I always wanted for him what I'm doing now. I always wanted, I can remember being 13 and just be like, if this dude would just like read and digest and then go, I wanted for him something, but that wasn't his life path. And it wasn't until probably 27. We had a fight at 27. That was the first time where I was like, oh, he may die still doing the regular guy thing. He may die still saying bitches ain't shit. Fuck, that's interesting. My dad was awesome. And he was running essentially a prostitution ring out of his apartment that I was paying for.
Wow.
Right?
Wow. Okay.
When he died last year.
Okay.
While I was at Burning Man.
Huh.
And he knew that if he smoked cigarettes, he could die because he had COPD. And he smoked anyway. He did it anyway. After having multiple conversations with him, I said, I need you to be alive because I want my kids to know their granddad. And that dude still smoked cigarettes. I wanted something for him that was not his life path. And what I'm saying and what I'm pointing to is what you just said. Without some of those things, you wouldn't have sought out, searched out, and looked from 50,000 feet in the air of what's happening. My dad never made that choice. And God bless his soul because some of the choices he did make gifted me with the opportunity to do it. I get to live out what he didn't. And my sons will get to do the same. They'll take it to a whole nother level.
I think that's something so interesting about our generation. I don't know what age you are, but we're kind of close.
Yes.
Ish. So many people I know are the chain breakers in the family lineage, the family dynamic of like trauma cycles and karmic loops and over and over again. It's like, I know so many people that are like, nope, buck stops here. There's a new trajectory now in this DNA thread, and we're going in a different direction. It's really, really incredible to be a participant in that and a witness in that. And, you know, as I said, I don't have kids yet, but I'm making my own ripples in my own way.
You have kids already. They're just not here in the physical.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Yeah. And even with my younger brothers, you know, it's just like, they're on a different path. It's not the same exact path, but we contextualize our life experience in a very similar way. And I know when and if they have kids, new game. It's not the old thing anymore. It's a new game. And for that, I have hope and reverence. And also still I understand that, you know, you mentioned utopia, that we don't want to be there really anyway. You know what I mean? Because it's like, the contrast of duality is what gives its life the richness. And as you described, you know, without that hot, then you can't experience cold and all of that. So it's actually a really sweet lane to be in where you're very committed to evolution and merging with God, but also accepting of and appreciative of the gift of duality and contrast. And knowing that, you know, we're on this steady trajectory upward in consciousness, and there's all these little baby dips on the way. But we are the ones, man, that are choosing to be like, nope, cool. We're down with the evolution. We're down with the contrast. And even though we don't think utopia is the end goal, we're going to facilitate more utopian energies and more harmony and more love into this plane. And I'm very grateful to get to know you today and to participate in like, such a sweet dance of expression and sharing of ideas and consciousness. So thank you so much.
Oh yeah, man. I appreciate you. Thank you for saying yes. Thank you for stepping forward. Thank you for being a leader. Thank you for opening your heart. Thank you for expansion. Thank you for all of it, bro. It's a big deal. And dudes oftentimes don't tell each other that and like really mean it. I'm proud of you. Even though you're older than me, I'm proud of you. I'm so grateful that you decided to be the best version of you. So big. Look how many people get to benefit from the choice you made. You will never see the end of your giving, ever. It's so expansive. It's actually wild when you think about it. And so thank you from the bottom of my heart, and thank every single one of you who is listening or watching or has been on this ride with us, because it's informed by your energy as well. We don't just do this thing right here. We have the global mind, right? It's called the internet. But the people on the other side of these cameras are the global heart. And that's what we're experiencing right now. So appreciate you, man.
Who have been 3 teachers or teachings that have influenced your work that you might recommend to the audience?
Nature, number 1. Spend more time outside, shoes off, I have my students do something called a soul sabbatical, where they take 30 minutes to an hour once a week with no journals, no phones, no nothing. Just beingness and listening outside. That's one. Number two, I'm going to do this differently because I'm a rebel. Number two, I have something that I've been having my students do for a while called joy alarms, where you set 3 to 4 alarms in your phone. And every time those alarms go off, you literally burst into the biggest version of joy you can possibly do, literally recalibrating your nervous system to that thing. We are patterns in a space. And so we can create new patterns of joy. That's number two. Number three, get your questions answered and your answers questioned. Those are the three.
Love it. Mm-hmm. Deep. Where can people find you on social media, websites, etc.?
At Preston Smiles, PrestonSmiles.com, KaboomCoaching.com if you're a coach and you want some support. But just at Preston Smiles. Find me anywhere. I love you guys. And if you don't find me, it's been awesome. Like, really cool.
Likewise. Thank you.
Yeah, man.
Thanks for coming on. Thanks for making the time. I know we're close to New Year's. You got the 3 kids, the wife. You know, it's not probably that easy to pull yourself away. So thank you for taking the time with us today.
100%, man. Appreciate you, brother.
For sure.